Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today we're going to be working on a Shimano Sustain. This reel has come in from Florida and came in with a pack of Shimano reels, and they asked me to tune it up and well, get it back to working condition. It's in good condition now, but needs the oils and greases. So we'll show you how to take this reel apart, how to service it, and how to keep it fishing as part of this video. If you'd like to learn about fishing reel services and support and maintenance and how to keep yours in optimal condition, then I would suggest that you subscribe to the channel. This channel shows all kinds of fishing reel service and support, and well, regardless of whether it's a freshwater reel like this one, or a saltwater reel, or a bait caster, whatever it is, we generally are working on it in the shop, and we try to take what we learned, pass it along to you so that you can service your reels as well. Well, the Shimano Sustain, this one is a 3000 size, and well, it's got this Shimano tie down here, which requires a small Torx, micro Torx if you will, to pull a screw out. And I just happen to go to this one because I do it so much, but this is a .09, and you can see there's a screw there that's a set screw for this assembly, and once you take that out, the whole assembly will come off. Well, I like to leave that right where it is because, well, it's easy to lose. And what I do is you put them into parts trays. The parts trays help me keep track of the various pieces as I take them off. Generally speaking, I will use them to corners of that parts tray to address all of the pieces. And well, I would encourage you to have a part strategy as you're working along on your reel. I would just want to check here to make sure that this is a screw-in handle. It is. Sometimes they'll put a screw through there and you go to take this off and it can snap. And we don't want to do that. But this is a handle that unscrews, and it unscrews in the direction that you are removing, or the opposite direction of the retrieve. Alright, this actually has an oil port in it. If you wanted to oil the reel without taking the reel apart, you can pull that little plug there. But again, we're going to take this whole thing off. You saw me loosen the top piece here. That's a rotor nut that goes on in the opposite direction. It is called a reverse thread, and actually if you look on the base of the rotor right here, it says unscrew and it's pointing in that direction. So I leave you a little hint there. So if you've been trying to pull it off from the opposite side in the traditional removal manner and are running into trouble, that's why. Alright, so we've removed the rotor, the spool, the adjuster nut, the handle, the top spool carrier, and now we're getting into the base of the reel. I think this reel was made in the about 10 years ago. I'm not quite sure. I have to go back and check that version of it. Well, we want to remove the case screws next. This is a good place to tell you to take the pictures as you work on your reel, particularly if you don't have a schematic. Now, schematics for this reel are available. Just go out and do an internet search, you'll find them. But sometimes you'll find that the reel you're working on just doesn't have that support. And in that case, taking pictures along the way, even when you have the schematics, is a good thing to do. I call it best practice, because if you get lost, you'll be able to see the orientation of where the piece and part was before you removed it. So that's always a good idea. We've just removed the anti-vibration ring. One of the faults of this design was that ring can occasionally melt down because people will pour oil on there and other things, and it just doesn't work well with that material that's in the ring. And when it melts down, it becomes gooey and gummy and fouls the reel. Alright, there's a small screw on this side that's holding the bump guard. Put that in one corner, and there's also one up here. Don't forget about that one. If you try to remove that bump guard without this screw, you're going to snap the attachment point over on this side. Alright, now it can come off. Put that into the position with that. Now we removed one of these screws. You'll see that we do have a access point cover here. That's for that one guide arm that holds the rod that the crosswind block rides on. When I take these off, I always make sure that the screws are the same size, because Shimano has this annoying habit of using 4 or 5 different screw sets in the same reel. So sometimes even when they're not distinguishable, I'll take the 2 that are up top here, which are normally shorter, and put them to one section of my parts tray, and then come back and put the other one in the other side. All right, I think we pretty much have it. We took the 2 out here, the 2 here. I think this comes off without doing that. So we can pull off the back. And what you're going to see in this reel essentially is a Shimano Stratic. This reel is a worm gear oscillation system, and it has a main drive that I think is the same kind of material, Hagane or whatever the Shimano one is. All right, let's just take the other few parts off here. I'm going to take off our anti-reverse. Now there's 3 bigger headed screws on this. These are the only ones that you remove. There are 2 small screws, screw heads. Leave them on because that's holding the cover of your anti-reverse clutch. When you pull that out, a lot of bad things can happen. One of the good things I like to do when I take them off is kind of sit those screws right back in there. That way I know the position of them. And we did that so that we can pull the pinion gear and the base bearing out. All right. Now this one, normally you don't need to do any more here. You have a drive for your oscillation gear, and you have the pawl in there. Generally speaking, during a service that's just cleaning up the reel, soaking that with a penetrating oil to loosen what little oils are on there is fine. I'm checking the back bearing, making sure it's spinning while I'm at it. I'm going to place oil on that back bearing. Do the same thing here, just clean up a little bit. It's very clean here. Now if you needed to replace this, by all means, you would want to get in there, take it apart. To remove your pawl, there's a little screw right here that'll remove the pawl. Pull this cover and your drive shaft will come down from your worm gear. But in this case, everything is operating as it should. Oil is what's recommended for those drives, so just simply oil it when you're done cleaning. And then let's come over, we want to clean our pinion gear and our bearing there. I'm going to oil the bearing. Grab a paper towel so that I don't transfer the old greases and dirt to my bench. Then I'm going to take a hard bristle brush. You can use a toothbrush or anything. This is one of those value pack brushes where they come with a steel brush, a brass brush, and a bristle brush. And most of the time I'll go with the least abrasive, unless there's really some serious dirt and debris in there that can only be cleaned with something stronger. In that case, I may move over to the brass brush to accomplish that. All right, we've kind of greased up our main pinion gear. When I grease that up, I use fishing reel grease. In this case, I'm using Penn Precision reel grease. I recommend that you only use a reel grease when you do that. Notice here's your anti-reverse override. There's the spring, in case maybe you've taken it off and it's shot out somehow. That's how the spring goes. There's a tab that sits down here. There's a tab that goes up and under this arm. You do not need to remove that as part of the basic service. Just going to reset this again. Make sure you seat into the cavity here. Make sure that your bearing is flush to the top. You do not oil or grease a clutch. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you can see it, but Shimano was kind enough to remind us right here, do not grease. On the bottom side of your clutch, you're going to find an indent, little metal plate. That's what goes over the stud here on the anti-reverse. So line that up as you bring this in. And if you've taken this carrier off, point to note, it's not the same size. One side is low, one side is wider. This one is smaller. The smaller side goes down. If you don't put the smaller side down, those bearings aren't going to have anything to catch on. Make sure that you mesh that little stud with your slot. And then these screw holes, these screw heads should align with the holes in the case. And we can put these back together. And if we wanted to at this point, we could probably put the rotor on, but there's more work to be done with the case and that. So let's get back over here. Main gear, well, this is why it needed to be tuned up. There's no grease at all on the main gear. Some hiding inside here from some centrifugal force, but there's none where it needs to be. So again, clean it, inspect the teeth. Make sure that all of these teeth are uniform. These are really solid gears. So on the teeth side of it, no issues whatsoever most of the time. It's a hardened gear. If you do have a gear noise, many times it's that the pinion gear has got scarred because this metal is harder. Harder metal gears are fine, but they're also noisier. All right, bring this back in. Seat that. You want to put oil onto your outside cover bearing. You can spin it. I've tested it, but you can spin it to make sure that it's okay. Then you're going to find the trip ramp for your reel. There's a little slot in the case right here. That's how that goes in before you mount. And you can bring your main case over. You need to tilt a little bit so that you can get that stud aligned for this side of the case to come in. Make sure you get a nice tight snap and that your seams are nice and firm. So now we have all those little mystery screws, if you will, the 6 screws, 3 of them or 4 of them different. So I'm going to go to the corner that had the top screws here. Again, they're a little bit shorter than the other 2. Let's bring these on. And while I'm doing that, if you have any questions on this reel or any reel, maybe you're curious about how a reel like this works from an oscillation system. We showed you the worm gear, and if you think of that worm gear just like you think of a worm gear drive on a level wind reel, now this is an example of a wholly entirely different one, right? You have a worm drive and a line guide that goes back and forth. Well, just turn it on its side. It'll go up and down, and when it goes up and down, that's what's moving your axle shaft up and down so that your line spools evenly. Go for the 2 wider screws now. That reel is in for repair, needless to say. But it helped as a convenient prop for this video. All right, these 2 go on. Make sure you tighten down the screws, particularly if you're using these reels in a boat situation. Boats vibrate a lot, so they can shake screws loose. Find the ring. The wider side goes down. Bring it over your clutch. It's like a giant rubber band. Those little prongs on it keep the noise down on the rotor, keep the vibration down. The only problem you're going to have when you do this is right over here where that ramp is. Sometimes it doesn't seat all the way, so just make sure you check and tamp it down. Next up, we can put let's put the bottom guide on. It's easier to get this top screw in that way. Line up your bottom, make sure that the hole goes into this side. You had 2 tie-down screws for this. The long screw goes in the back, And I've been using a micro driver for that. This one of those little Harbor Freight multi-packs. We have the short screw goes here. So the hardest piece of this whole reel service is getting yourself those micro torque sets, multi-bit sets. That was also from Harbor Freight, to get that one little piece that you need to take out the set screw for your spool height adjuster and click ratchet. Okay, so we know that this went on backwards, so tighten it up as though you were traditionally taking that off. That's a 10 millimeter. You can spin it, make sure it's working fine, which it is. Next up then, you want to bring your pieces through. There's two pieces here. There's a carrier with a metal bottom and a little clip on it. That goes down, and then we have this carrier. And this carrier is going to automatically align for that hole because of the way it sits on the axle shaft. Well, I thought it would, but I guess this one doesn't. Okay, curious. Most of the ones have that little rectangular center, I think. I'm wrong. If you find yourself having some trouble, just stop. And then just use this little tool, hand tighten. You're fine. That's back on. Again, a 0.09 Torx. All right, handle goes on. All we have to do then is take a look at the drag washers. I believe the drag washers are going to be felt. I'll take a look. Make sure you put the other side cap on. Tighten that down. These things tend to pop off. Let's go over to our drag set. Looks like we have some kind of grease in there, probably the original Shimano grease. So there's three types of drag washers that you most likely will encounter. There's others, but you will most likely encounter something like a carbon tex washer, which are the modern ones. They're thin and they are hard washers that are non-permeable. You don't need to do anything with those washers. You could put a little bit of grease on it to help it avoid some heat, but overall it won't help or prolong the wear. You're going to find washers like these that are felt. There's nothing wrong with felt, but they're a felt washer or a fabric washer. They need to be kept lubricated. That's why you see the greases that were put in here. There's one on the bottom channel. I left it in there. Then there's a washer that has 4 prongs facing up on it. We'll do this again. We're going to oil this one. It's not to make it slip and slide. It's to keep this from tearing. This is a permeable washer. If it dries out, it's subject to tear. Now, if you do find that you have this reel and you're tearing up the drag washers, I don't know what you're fishing for that's going to tear them up, but if you've got this reel and you are tearing them up, you can switch over to an aftermarket carbon tex washer. And I would recommend you do that if you're just not getting the life out of the originals. All right, one more shot of the oil there. Then this is the counterpart. This is the one that has the 4 slots for that bottom washer that we put in. And you're going to notice on this that there's a kind of a hump or a raised pillar on these that faces up. Just line it up so that you can get these onto your studs like that. And then we have that last retention clip that goes in. So find the groove. There's a groove in there. Be careful with this. You can shoot this one to the moon. But just work it easily. It's not a very hard clip to set, strength-wise. Just needs to fall into the groove, and that's how it goes. All right, we've done all the work that we can do on this reel. Let's bring this back in, seat it, bring our adjuster knob down. You want to tighten this to make sure that it holds. And when you're not using it, back it off. You just saw that we put grease onto felt washers. If you tighten this down and leave it down, it's acting as a vise. It's compressing those washers. It's squeezing the grease out and the oils out. And, well, it's just going to waste the service you did. If you back it off, it's going to prolong the life of that washer. Let's give it a try. What can I say? Nice, easy spinning wheel. Just make sure that we have a bail that's, of course, right on the clip. Bail trips nice and easy, drags whole, wheel spins, mission accomplished. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that. That's the Shimano Sustain 3000 FG. That's how you take that wheel apart, service it, clean it up, make sure that it's got a long work session ahead of it and that it can perform without fear of it breaking down or failing because of lack of maintenance. Before I leave, I want to thank our first responders, our police, fire, safety, rescue, everybody involved in keeping us out of harm's way. I appreciate your career choice and dedication to service. I want to thank you, the viewers, for watching, for helping make this channel what it is, for guiding me in what you'd like to see, and correcting me when, well, I do make errors, and I appreciate that. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, wishing everybody a great day.